661-755-2166. That's it.
Times are tough, and right now those in the commercial world know that being heard via advertisements is the name of the game. AmpSquare.tv understands how important advertisement is and is proud to express that it's truly the only plugged-in internet television production company on the market. Amp2.tv live streams all their shows across all the major selling markets in the U.S. and abroad. Call them at 866-224-5422. The AmpSquare.tv library allows productions to be seen over and over again, making commercial platforms more usable. Call 866-224-5422. Toll free 866-224-5422. Amp2.tv, the first and only internet television network that's truly plugged in. 866-224-5422. That's AMP2.TV.
Talk 1470 WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
CPA for the People provides CPA services and business consulting for innovative creators. Collaborative, personal, affordable. We specialize in tax consulting, business consulting, financial statement compilation, and personal finance. For more information, please go to www.cpaforthepeople.com or call at area code 630-244-7893. Youthful Savings creates and delivers innovative financial education products through a virtuous approach in order to disrupt the cycle of poverty. We provide affordable college planning solutions through our Financial Freedom web application and program, youth financial education and entrepreneurship training through our My Own Business Challenge curriculum and program, and group youth programs that teach entrepreneurship and financial education. 10 cents of every dollar earned is reinvested into the community saved through the Youth College Scholarships. For more information, please go to www.youthfulsavings.com. Email at info@youthfulsavings.com or call 646-504-7164. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Good morning, I'm Raquel the Bell on the one and only WWNN 1470. Today in the studio we have Tracy from We Are the People. You can join her every Monday night from 7 to 7:30 p.m. on her website, wearethepeople.tv. Tracy tackles the student loan dilemma and offers viable options. And now, here's Tracy.
Good evening and welcome back. We Are the People is here one more time at 7 o'clock on Monday night. For those of you who are tuning in on the radio, you can find our show at wearethepeople.tv for archives and live showing right now. And for those who are viewing on the web, if you're local to the South Florida area, we are filming live here at the WNN studio, which is 1470 live on the AM dial. So tonight we have Donald Cleveland back again, former lobbyist and author of Revitalizing America. Thank you for joining me tonight again.
Thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure being here again.
So I just want to recap a little bit about last week. But before I even do that, I want to give an update. The TPP is a big issue. It's going to vote again one more time tomorrow. I keep looking over there and stuff. I actually called Senator Nelson's Washington office today. He is supporting the TPP, and his staff said that, well, you know, if he decides it's not a good bill, he'll deal with it when it comes back to the Senate, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I would think, why not go against it right from the get-go? But he's waiting to see what? What is he waiting to see? I don't know.
Good question.
I don't know. But anyway, I'm not in agreement with that, as you all well know. 2 weeks ago, Soumya Munjal was here, and we talked about starting our organization, the SSS, Student Services Society, which is going to be our new nonprofit that we're founding, Donald and I. And last week, Well, when I was talking with Soumya, we discussed a little bit about this Small Business Administration and how it had changed. And then last week, if you would like to catch up, you can go to the website to do that. Donald talked pretty extensively about different things that have happened.
Right.
And I noticed on the web that Cato is the one that criticizes them. And of course, that's the Koch brother, Charles Koch. So now, I thought that was very interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up pretty much where we left off last week.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the 14th Amendment.
Right.
And how that has, well, it doesn't really work for us, does it?
No. As a matter of fact, Tracy, a lot of the people use, again, sort of the general phraseology within the text of the 14th Amendment. And most Americans look at it from the point of view of saying, well, there's supposed to be due process and equal protection for all of us. What they don't do is bother to read sort of the fine print in the 14th Amendment. And as a result of that, they don't realize that the equal protection and the due process in the 14th Amendment refers only to the state governments.
So there's no federal protection.
There is no federal protection granting us equal protection or due process under the law. And to a great extent, that's why you can get away with such things as some point that I'll make a little bit later on here. You can get away with such things of robbing pension funds in the United States. And you can get away with such things as treating students like third-class citizens by not giving them any right to go into bankruptcy on their student loans. You can have different classes of people being treated differently.
That's why they were away, and they've taken some people's license, and they're even taking driver's license now in some states.
It's horrifying to think that we believe, basically, most Americans believe, that we have equal protection under the law, and that's a myth for the federal government. They can do anything they want to with us. As a matter of fact, I'll even go so far as to say they could cause each of us to wear our religious symbols on our sleeves, as other governments have done with the Jewish people and
Jehovah's Witnesses also.
Yeah, I mean there is no equal protection under the law for the federal government. It applies only to state governments, and that's it. So how do we change that? Well, part of the whole, really the whole gist of my book is changing the laws of the United States.
And if you haven't seen the book, this is it. We got a glare. It's Revitalizing America. I highly recommend this book, so you can go into more detail about this in the book.
Yes, right. And the point of it is I didn't want to be just one of those people who wrote a book and complained about problems. I really, in my life, am a problem solver. I like to get things done. And the gist of the book, like I say, talks about the problems, and then it says what we must do to solve the problems. Everyone may not agree with what I'm saying, but the point of it is we can't let things sit just where they are.
Well, it's a start. It's a starting point. And that's what I think has happened with our government is unable to compromise and negotiate any longer. Everybody wants it their own way. We can't accomplish anything. They spend 4 years undoing what the administration before them had done.
Right.
And it helps no one, and we're all suffering for it.
Right. And if I can give you, I'll revert back to this aspect of the inequality and the lack of due process or equal protection. That's the main thing here, equal protection. Take, for example, a law was passed that allegedly was supposed to help protect the pensions in the United States, ERISA. And in that law, it provides for a couple of things. It provides that if your pension fund is actuarially sound, you have a membership fee that you have to pay in to the Pension Guarantee Trust Fund of $19 per person in the plan.
Okay.
If it is not sound, that is, if you don't have enough money to pay the liabilities of the pension fund or the benefits when people retire, then you have to pay a measly $53 per person into the Pension Guarantee Fund as a form of premium or insurance about the fact that your pension fund may go broke. But
so you're paying for your pension fund to go, for the possibility
you're
paying
possibility
more
that it will go broke.
That
Yes.
it's okay.
Yes, but here's sort of the the other side of it. Where is the equal protection for the people in the pension fund when you look at what the corporations can do? You actually have a situation where the corporations, when the stock market is high, can take the pension fund and cash out the stock at the high price of the stock market. And they walk away with profits from the pension fund saying that it's allegedly a surplus. Well, what happens then if you have a situation like 2008 and everything,
Right.
the bottom falls out?
So shouldn't the surplus be there to protect against this?
It should be there to protect against it.
But they
what if-
spend it.
They've spent it. They've taken it out and spent it on corporate purposes, while the pension members sit there and now
lose
look at
their money.
That's right. They look at a fund that has dropped under the actuarial soundness. They look at a fund that doesn't have enough money to pay for the benefits that were promised them.
And they've paid more for it than they would if it was a sound.
Yes, right. And just for example, 3 big U.S. corporations, and this is how corporations are favored over people. Again,
definitely.
Equal protection. Are we getting equal protection? Well, Exxon took, in one of these situations, $1.6 billion out of their pension fund. Union Carbide took $504 million, and Goodyear took $400 million out of the pension fund when it was allegedly in surplus.
That's unbelievable.
And then the bottom drops out of the market, and what do you have? An unfunded pension liability, and all the corporations had to pay was $53 a head per year to get away with that robbery.
Oh, my God. And then you add in the slabs. Are you familiar with slabs? Okay, so that's basically student loan debt that's been rolled into your pension funds. A lot of these are in state pension funds.
Yes.
So again, you may think you're getting, 24,000 and you end up getting 18 because people
Right.
don't pay their student loans because there's no jobs, which
Right.
is why I keep referring back to the TPP,
Right.
by the way,
Right.
because we don't have enough jobs as it is.
Right. That's just
So-
it's a tragedy. I know, and sort of as a segue into the student loan situation, I don't know how many people I've bumped into in restaurants, and there are people who are serving waiting tables or cleaning up afterwards, and you just get into a conversation with them, and you say, "Have you gone to school?" "Well, yes, I have." "Well, what are you?" "I'm a PhD," and they're waiting tables because they can't.
It's the only way to
get-
pay their loans.
That's right. And they can't get a job in the field that they were trained in. Now, naturally, you can't have 10,000 anthropologists applying for one job, but these are people who've studied vital subjects that we needed. I mean, like some form of science or some form of music, which we also need in our society. But these are people who've just fallen through the sieve because the economy has collapsed and we have no guarantee to help them out.
And not only that, I mean, elementary schools, this one my son went to, they cut all the art, all the
Yeah,
music,
right.
all the physical education, and you wonder why we have obese kids.
Yes.
So,
So anyway, if you get to the core of the problem, though, and you mentioned it with the student loan situation, the fact, again, I go back to the 14th Amendment and saying that what you have here, it's the only time that you ever see it in American history like this. You have students who acquire a debt, going to school, and then the bottom falls out of the job market. They can't pay the debt because there are no jobs, or the jobs that they have would be flipping burgers in a restaurant.
the average age is up to 35 now.
Right, right. And so you have that situation where they just cannot afford to pay back the loan. And so the brilliance of the federal government under the 14th Amendment allows them to say, well, we don't care what hardship you have, or at least this was a hardline position at the beginning, we don't care what hardship you have, you cannot go into bankruptcy. You can't discharge your loan through bankruptcy, like all the rest of the people, all the rest of the corporations,
Right.
everyone else in our society can do.
Yes, gamblers. Okay, they can claim bankruptcy,
Right.
but it wasn't. It was first. It was just government loans. Sallie Mae became a private entity the end of 2004. Less than 6 months later, at the beginning of 2005, it was then extended to private student loans as
Right.
well. So you are you have no consumer protections whatsoever. And these were set up because our founders came from countries that had debtors' prison. This is not what
Right.
this country is supposed to be about. But yet, the entire middle class is virtually being shoved down into poverty at this point.
Oh, it is. There's no question about that. The increase in the rate of poverty in the country is astronomical in comparison to what it had been in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then beyond that, the middle class is being whittled down, as you say, very quickly.
Well, I was working with people. The one job I did have after school, the gal that they hired in to help me, she was making $125,000 a year. They paid her $12 an hour. I was getting $12.50. Okay, and that's for a college degree, and I was told I should be, thankful that I have a job, and, no one comes into that company getting a full-time job, and I should consider myself lucky. Meanwhile, by the end, I was working my job plus 3 other people's job, and they wanted me to do outside sales on top of everything else. And this is happening all across the country. You may be making a good salary, I hope you are, but if you're not, you're still probably doing 3 people's jobs.
Right.
So if you have any questions, our toll-free number is 888-565-1470. Feel free to call in.
Yeah, Tracy, what I'd like to do is the law, which allowed student loans to be provided in the first place, also said that there would be a possibility to discharge the debt through bankruptcy, but only under conditions of undue hardship. Well, what happened is that the hardliners in the courts took a position that it's almost impossible to prove undue hardship. What does undue hardship consist of? And it took them years to finally develop a standard while really grinding up the bones of all the people who were going through or attempting to go through a bankruptcy process.
Oh, it's miserable.
It is, sure. And so they finally developed a standard through a court in the state of New York. The standard is called the Brunner Standard.
Yes, which is almost impossible to meet.
Well, there is some good news. There is some silver lining here, and it's coming out in some more recent cases where judges are starting to see that this absolute condition just doesn't equal what we as Americans were promised. And so in that respect, they're starting to look at what this whole thing in the Brunner Standard is. And one of the points in the Brunner Standard is that the debtor has to be really, they have to have hardship to the point that they can't really afford to maintain themselves. They can't afford to have
I have
minimal standards of living for himself, herself, or their dependents. They just can't make it.
Oh, my son, he's 15. We're trying to do homework with no computers. Yeah. Meanwhile, they don't give you books anymore. They want you to look everything up on the computer.
Right.
And that's not always a possibility.
No, it isn't. So that's one point in the Brunner.
Especially if you don't have one.
Right. One point in the Brunner Standard. Another point is that there should be additional circumstances that exist indicating that this state of affairs is likely to continue on into the foreseeable future. And this foreseeable future thing is another really interesting aspect of this.
Well, that's usually where they kill it.
Right, they try to. And then the third point is that the debtor has made a good effort to repay, or a good faith effort to repay the loan. Now, there are some people, when they get out of college, and like in 2008, 2009, 2010, when there were no jobs available.
That's when I got out.
They had to go home and live with their parents. How could they pay if they had no income? They didn't have a job. And so how could they show a good faith effort? And this is really where things were hung up. And this is where the big organizations that are called agencies, that are these people
shadowy figures.
Yeah, people like Educational Credit Management Corporation. They're one of the biggest ones out there. They call themselves a guarantor of the student loan debt, and they are the ones who actually try to collect the debt from the students.
Well, Sally Mae had their own.
Yeah.
I mean, it was under a different company. It
Right.
was a different, name. It was,
Right.
but it belonged to them.
Right.
So isn't that a conflict of interest?
Well, I see it as that. I clearly do.
And now what just happened with Corinthian?
Yeah, Corinthian we discussed that a little
Yeah.
bit last week. They had gone into bankruptcy. The
So
students,
they can go to
Right,
bankruptcy.
right.
The company,
Right.
again, unfair.
right, but the students couldn't. And now what happens is that one of the biggest student loan debt collection agencies in the United States, Educational Credit Management, bought the bankrupt body of the Corinthian
my
university system.
Are you
So they're going to be channeling loans, funneling loans, administering loans to
And
the
collecting
student and
loans,
collecting
and you
loans.
make more money on loan collections. I mean, even the government makes more money
Yes.
on that. So
Yes.
how they're, and let me tell you, I mean, I'm fighting with Great Lakes right now because these people, they are masters at drawing out the clock.
Yep.
They'll tell you they want this, that, and the other. You send them that, and then it's like, oh, well, we need that. They have 90 days to comply. At the end of the, day number 89, when you have no time to, and it's a year and a half. And
Yeah.
then the different people that are looking into it have different criteria. One will say, oh, this is bad, and the other will say, oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, this whole situation with the Brunner rule,
Yeah.
and the last point especially about making a good faith effort to pay, has that particular obstacle is starting to be punched enough by the bankruptcy courts and the federal district courts and the federal courts of appeals, so that it's sort of melting in a way, and there's reasonability coming into it. And there are two recent cases, or I would call them recent insofar as history is concerned. There's one case that was Educational Credit Management Corporation versus Mosley, which was a case heard in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. That happens to be in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And then there was another case called the Susan Krieger versus Educational Credit Management Corporation. Notice how their name comes up all the time?
Yes.
And that was in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in 2013. And what was interesting in both of these cases was that the court finally dealt without question with this issue of what's a good faith effort to pay. And in both of these cases, in the Mosley case and in the Krieger case, it happens that neither one of them could pay money.
Period.
Well, Susan Krieger paid for a short period of time, and she had taken out the loans so that she could be a legal aid. And she lived in a rural area in Indiana. There were no legal aid positions within the area. She had a car that was over 10 years old and was falling apart. Her mother was aged, 75 years old. She was partially an invalid. Susan had to help take care of her.
So there was no way to get a job and pay the bills
way
and
to
pay
get a
the
job.
loans.
No. And
I know exactly where she's at.
Yeah, and during that period of time, she also...
And she had no internet access.
Right, no internet access. I mean, that I'm looking across the table.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I didn't have, my car was down for 6 months. I mean, it took me
Yeah.
6 months to
Yes.
get the money to pay it back,
Right.
and once you're in these situations, it becomes harder and harder to get out of them, even though you try. I mean, I personally have paid almost $36,000 of a $40,000 loan. I've paid off another loan entirely. That $40,000 loan, they want almost $51,000 now, 50 or 51,
right.
49. I mean, it
Right.
keeps going up.
Right.
It's like, and,
Yeah.
my government loans, I haven't even been able to touch because I thought you got to pay the ones with the higher interest because they'll
Right.
take you out. All the money my father left me went to that.
Well, it's a shame that we treat people in our society that way, and I do expect some Americans in the audience to listen to what I'm saying, and judge it by the basis of how you care about other people in your heart. Whether you've had it hard in your life or not, and you think everybody else has to work in hard scrabble in order to make things pay off. That doesn't necessarily have to be. And it's really important to point out that, say, for example, in Denmark and in Sweden and in Norway and in Germany, all of the students there who want to go to college free.
And they have a meal ticket and a transportation ticket to go with it.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, in some of the states in Germany, they even pay a €500 per month a stipend to the kids to help make sure that they go to school without real worries. They want their children to be smart. They want their children to invent the next most important things in the world. They don't want them to sit there and be so depressed because they're faced with the problem of how they're going to pay their student debt.
Right.
That just does not happen.
And unfortunately, we're almost out of time again.
Well, let me, if I may, just finally say that when EMC tried to tell the court that there was no good faith effort on behalf of either Krieger or Mosley to pay, the court said, "You're crazy." They didn't say it like that, but in fact it was like that. The court really said, look, both of those people made a good faith effort by trying as hard as they could to get a job. They couldn't help it that the job market is not there. They couldn't help it that they lived in isolated areas or that they had become a drug addict. They couldn't actually do anything but to try. And that effort of trying was good faith enough for the court. So the court upheld, in both cases, the bankruptcy
Thank God.
of these student debtors.
And then again, that's another problem. I mean, the last bankruptcy attorney I talked to, they want $5,000.
Oh, yes.
So if you're in the situation, you can't help pay. And these are some of the things we want to try to help bridge these gaps
Right.
with the Student Services Society. We're really not going to get into much of that today. But the Corinthian bankruptcy, that really kills me, because that's Sally Mae all over again.
Well, if I may, I would like to give to you the official certificate of incorporation of
Oh
the
my
Student
God.
Services Society with Tracy Marks as the chairperson of that organization.
Thank you.
Tracy, there you are.
Oh my gosh, thank you. What a great way to end the show. We can't see, but I can see it. So, State of Florida Department. Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you.
You're
I
more
couldn't
than
have done
welcome.
it without you. Appreciate your help. And I'm looking forward to a lot of good things, Donald.
I am too. I think that we can really help the students and it's an area that's so badly needed.
There is, and there's a lot of attorneys in these student loan groups, and I've been talking with one gal, Dana, and there's just a lot of really good ideas. And the problem, I think, is, it's state by state. Everybody in their own state has to go for this, but we really need an amendment.
Yep.
We need an amendment so we are all.
And lastly, here's the FEIN,
Oh, we got
the
it.
Federal Employers Identification Number.
So we're in business.
We're in business.
All right. And I'm going to be talking to a couple people about fundraisers in the next few days and stuff too. So with that, we're going to say goodnight. Will you be back next week?
I will be here.
Okay, so we're going to walk through a bunch of this stuff, tell you all our different ideas. Hopefully we'll get some input from you. And I've got some grant writers working on some stuff already
Good.
too.
Onward
so I'm
and
excited.
upward.
Yes.
Strike a blow for freedom.
All right. Here we go. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
You have been listening to We Are the People with social advocates Tracy Marks and Jorge Estamba, who every week bring to the light the needs and changes in our current system. Tune in every Monday night at 7 p.m. on wearethepeople.tv and participate in the conversation in the chat room or call 888-565-1470. Tune in next Monday for more information and facts. And Tracy and Jorge remind you to stay aware of your surroundings and challenges at all times.